Very exciting.
Oh, God. Yeah, picture, well.
Is sleeping.
So far.
Oh, but the night is so.
Yeah.
Raise the volume. Yeah. They've got you on training, yeah.
Number one song in this song.
Charles, or one of them. What is audio teatro? Even better, even better. Audio teatro, even better. Always even better.
Yeah. It's a long. Oh, look at you. You're so
Okay, wow, look at that. You've joined the other side. You crossed over to the other side. Excellent. Well, I don't think we have any people on Zoom.
You know.
After you probably scared them off yet last week because you didn't have information to share with them. But it's okay. In some ways it's better because we can be focused on the energy that's here. Okay, well. Have we all gathered? We'll give it 2 more minutes. Anyone who wasn't here last week?
We were.
You weren't?
No.
All right, welcome.
Thanks.
What are your names?
My name's Susan.
Joe.
Joe, hi. Not that everybody here knows everybody's name, right? All right, so why don't we go around the room then? Say your name and how your soul is feeling today.
My name is Susan and I'm feeling curious.
Joe, yeah, I'm interested about the class.
Nancy, still open.
I'm real good.
Watch, I'm trying to find myself.
I'm Paul. I've never been in Seoul. I always went to Korea, so.
Stacy, no, we're curious also.
I can, oh,
Debbie and attentive. Kathy, I'm okay. Sorry. That's it.
that's, I'm feeling,
Oh, yeah.
oh. Fred, I'm open.
Frank, here to learn.
Johanna.
Keith, my soul, whatever that is at rest.
I'm Tyler, I'm tired.
I'm Wallace and I'm peaceful. I'm Quinn and my soul feels present.
I'm Rin and my soul feels heavy.
I'm Mason and my soul feels optimistic.
And over there.
I don't know.
What's your name?
Oh.
And I'm Rabbi Zohar, and my soul, I guess, is yearning. So good. I'm glad that a lot of us made it back from the first class to the second class. That's always a question, because there's one thing is the marketing department, but then the people who come the second time, there's already a chance they're going to stick till the end. Although you never know, right? So I'm glad you're all back. Last week we kind of had an overview of the soul in Jewish tradition, but we kind of touched upon the biblical and then rabbinic layers of our culture. And we realized that there's not a systematic doctrine of the soul in the Bible. And actually, they had it pretty simple. You live, you die, that's it. Be a good person, God will reward you in this life. You will not be a good person, God will not reward you in this life. The Bible knew that there's an element in the Bible. The Bible doesn't know anything. The Bible is a book. But in the people throughout biblical time, it's not one person and it's not one period, right? Because the Bible was written over a course of 1,000 years, more or less. People were aware that there is a non-physical element to our existence, but it wasn't systematic. Different people thought different things, and also they didn't make a big deal out of it. They didn't break their heads over, does it exist? How can we prove it? All those things, because that was not in the culture, right? We do know that God created, according to Genesis, that God created, humans and breathed air, ruach, breath into them, right? We do know that in Ecclesiastes it says that the body returns to the soil, and the spirit goes back to God, which gave it to us, right? So there's a separation between the the physical and the, I don't know, spiritual element, right? But as we said, there is hardly ever talk of the afterlife in the Bible. There's hardly ever talk of resurrection. Only the book of Daniel, which is maybe the latest layer of the Bible. Right? So people had it simple in the Bible in that respect. Right? You die, you are gathered to your people, you're gathered to your ancestors. That's it. All right. And then we saw that in the Talmud, in the Mishnah, the Talmud, in the times of the Hellenistic time and the Roman Empire, when around 2,000 years ago, more or less, the first centuries of the Common Era, there's a change. Rabbis are talking about Ha'olam Haba, the world that is to come. And there's different thoughts of who gets to be in the world to come and who doesn't get to be in the world to come. But it's still not an organized doctrine or a dogma of what happens in the afterlife or what is the soul, right? Because Jews just didn't think that way, that they owe anyone an explanation, a philosophical or scientific explanation of those things.
I think there's two people in the waiting room.
They are, that's very flattering. Where do you see them?
Bottom right.
Bottom right?
Yeah.
Oh, let them in. Maybe are there people? Are they spirits?
Soul.
They're so.
They're souls.
Yes.
They're souls, right? They live in a different dimensions. And then towards the end of class, we kind of touch upon the idea that when and under the influence of what and whom are Jewish scholars, Jewish rabbis starting to discuss these issues in a more organized manner. What was the influence? What was the culture that kind of like Jews were in discussion with? Like Jews who live in America, we're in discussion with American culture, whatever that is. Whatever it is, Mickey Mouse. I don't know, what is American culture? Like what did America give to the world culturally? I'm not being facetious. I'm asking a lot of things, but right, like if you had to choose, like what's that? Hot dogs, yeah, baseball, yeah, right. Well, there's a few more things. Let's not be too tough on ourselves, right? At any rate, the big culture that Jews are talking with in those times is the Hellenistic and then Roman culture. Right, where you, for the first time, people who are Jewish are realizing there's such a thing called philosophy, right? And all of a sudden, they have to explain themselves to themselves or to their neighbors in a way that, is there any coherence? Is there a system to Judaism? Does Judaism believe in the existence of the soul, that the soul has a separate existence to the body? Is there an afterlife? Is something left after we die? And throughout the Bible, no one really felt that they owed an answer to all those things, and maybe they didn't even ask those questions. And to the extent that they did, they never wrote about it. See what I mean? But all of a sudden, when the Jewish culture is immersed, is in dialogue with the more systematic writings and thinking of, Plato, Aristoteles, these kind of philosophers, all of a sudden you need to explain yourself in this new language. And then depending on which philosophers you're influenced by, that will be might be your answer. So more or less, there are two camps. There's people who follow Aristotle and people who follow Plato. Which ones are you? Let's have a quick vote. Who is an Aristotelian here? You are. Of course. Why?
Wait,
Maimonides was in.
Because so you follow Maimonides.
Yeah.
All right, good to know. Who is a Platonist or a Neoplatonist, as they say?
make it one sentence of what the difference.
No, you just have to feel it in your soul. All right, you're Platonist. Why?
I think forms are cool.
You like forms, right? Ideas, right? Right. So basically, in the context of the debate over the soul, that's important also to understand Kabbalah and everything that happened thereafter. If you're an Aristotelian, you basically think that the soul doesn't exist without the body. They go together. So basically, in so many words, when the body dies, what happens to the soul? It goes to the universe. There can't be an Or Zohar that doesn't have a body. Once my body is gone, that's it for me. in so many words. Platonists, the people who follow Plato, because Plato believed that there's a world of ideas, of forms, right? That are spiritual, and that this reality kind of imitates this world of ideals and forms. So in a Platonist world, there can be a soul that exists without the body. Right? So basically, if you want to explain in a very simple way a 1,000 years debate that goes until today, people say, is there not a soul that can exist without the body after we die, or can the soul leave the body and visit and come back? If you're Aristotelian influence, like Maimonides, who's probably the biggest Jewish philosopher of all time, arguably, for sure of the Middle Ages. And in so many words, Maimonides, in his Guide for the Perplexed, the book that he wrote for the esoteric circle of the people that he really wanted them to know what he believed, basically said, look, there is an eternal divine intellect that exists in the universe. If you're really smart, you'll tap into it while you're alive. You'll be unified with God through your intellect, but there's no you after you die, right? And for a lot of people, that was amazing. But then when he wrote to the simple people, to all the rest of us, he didn't say that because he thought that would be too radical for the simple person who has to believe in an afterlife and the resurrection. So he wrote some simple explanation. All right, so but it's not really what he thought or believed. So but then if you're a person who does believe in the soul, the afterlife, if you're influenced by Platonism, you'd say, well, what is this? Of course there's a soul. The soul can live after you're dead. The soul can go to different places. The soul can maybe be reincarnated, all different things. Right? And a lot of Kabbalistic writing, if you want to put it in a writing that we'll very soon to see, you could put it in this kind of debate, because people had to give an answer to Maimonides. Because people felt that there's some part of them that is divine, that is eternal, that is holy. People wanted to believe that there's a soul, that maybe that gives a chance to an afterlife. Right? And that debate really isn't over. Right, there's still and really in my experience there are people who really are more inclined to the one or the other. Now who's right, I don't know. Right, but the teachings of Kabbalah that we're going to see of the Zohar, in some aspect they're saying no, but excuse me, what is this philosophical idea that there's no soul? Right, there is a soul, and it can have a separate existence. It comes from God. Something happened to this after we die. It can evolve, and in many ways, it's an attempt to give a sophisticated answer to Maimonides and his followers and people who think like that. It's a debate within Judaism, but not only. It's a debate in Christianity and Islam and in other cultures as well. It's more like a Western world debate. In India, they don't bother with it. They know that well, it depends. If you're Hindu, there's a soul. If you're Buddhist, not exactly, but there's still. Let's not go in there. But so these debates exist all over the world. Okay, so yes, so that's basically the premise from which the Kabbalistic writings will emerge. The ones that we will be reading from the Zohar are products of the 13th century, more or less, where people are really in this debate. Right, and then it also, if you read, did any of you get a chance to read this little essay that we were going through all the way to the end? You could see that this debate continues in all the way till modernity, right? Where there's different modern philosophy, Hasidism, neo-Hasidism, and many people start to say, well, maybe it's not a question about what is or what we can define, but more about human experience. Right, or how we should live in this life, or what narrative we tell ourselves. But basically, this framework continues all the way to our days, our times. Spinoza. Anyone ever heard of Spinoza? Right. Whenever you want to sound smart in a room, say something like Nietzsche or Spinoza. Right. Spinoza was very much a continuation of you and Maimonides. He basically said, "Oh, forget it. There's just the mind. Don't worry about it." Right. And if you followed up some medieval philosopher who came shortly after Maimonides, you see that they try to kind of like not negate Maimonides, but kind of argue with him politely, right? Because, for example, one of them said, Geronides, he says, well, yes, it's, if you want to know God through your soul, it does have to do with the intellect. But yes, the soul, but what you achieved, what your intellect has achieved throughout life, that would be your eternal soul. And then Rabbi Chisdai Kreskas came and said, but to Maimonides, but why are you focusing on the intellect? Who said that the intellect is the divine part? He was trying to say, with all due respect to the intellect, that's just thoughts and knowledge. The real deep root of the soul and its existence is the will and love. Right? So basically saying it's not, right? And the question remains, because so what is that soul? Because we went around the room for 2 weeks in a row now and asked, how's your soul? A lot of people answer, how are you? What of all our answers can be attributed to the soul? Right? Is the soul equal my personality, my identity, my disposition right now? Is it? Right? It's what do we mean? I say I'm tired, or I'm curious, or I'm right, and I'm repeating what I said last week, but it's a good repetition, because what is that is the soul, right? And what is the soul? Does the soul equal the ego, or what I know really, like Maimonides thought? Maimonides is a little more sophisticated than that, but I don't want to. It's not a lecture about, his journey was very about the intellect.
There is somebody.
Oh, there is, see, another suffering soul, right? So the text that we'll be reading, they have in the back of your mind that they kind of try to offer also kind of like an idea of how to go about those things, right? For example, according to modern psychology, where is the soul? Is there a soul? Depending which psychologist you ask, right? According to a strict Freudian, as far as I know very little about those things, but according to strict Freudian theory, to believe in God is like it's almost like a mental disease, right? It's like God is something outside. It's an illusion, right? But then other psychologists, of course, had different ideas, and now it is transpersonal psychology, and a lot of the time it's past since Freud, right? So, but again, all these things are valid, right? So similarly, but 1,000 years before Freud almost, or 700 years before Freud, the Kabbalists have tried to come up with their own answers that on the one hand, we're tapping on things that they have known and learned for years and years and years and years before from ancient times. On the other hand, they're also kind of like trying to answer and even negate some of the philosophical ideas of their time. But they said, excuse me, what's that? We have a different tradition. And the third thing, that they were also just very creative and innovative in the solution that they try to provide to all those things. So, yeah. Mhm.
Is there a uniformity with thinking with Kabbalists?
All
They
the
know Jews or.
so it's a great question. So when we talk about Kabbalah, we talk about a lot of things, and the answer is no. Kabbalah is a phenomenon that has very deep roots from biblical times and maybe even before, because the Bible also started from people there are things before the Bible, right? So some of the roots of the ideas that are in Kabbalah are very, very deep and ancient roots. But also it's really a phenomenon from about maybe either 1,500 or 1,000 years ago. And really so even ancient texts, Kabbalistic texts or Jewish mystical texts, don't talk about the soul in a very organized way, or maybe they insinuate things. The first time that we have a culture or a book or in a rich text format that really talks about it a lot is the Zohar, which is more or less a 13th century creation. Some of you have been to Judaism 101 on Monday. There was a lecture about in Kabbalah 101. We say the Zohar, simply put, the Zohar is from 13th century Spain. The actual answer, the actual reality is a little bit more complicated. It's been written by lots of people, starting from the 10th century and all the way to the 14th century, more or less. But most of it was in many places, all around the Mediterranean basin, more or less. Like really seriously, I said it on Monday. So if you're there, one day we should have like a congregational tour to all the cool places where the Zohar was written. So it's Spain, Morocco, Venice, the Galilee, Israel, islands in the Aegean and the Greek islands. Yeah, the Jews were all there, and they all like, yeah, we're writing Jewish mysticism. It's great. Spain, a lot of it happened in Spain, some of it in southern France also. Good food, we should go to those places. Find the footsteps of the Zohar, yeah, right? So there and then, you have, for the first time, you actually have a more systematic description of the soul consisting of, well, it's now I'm getting lost in translation, that there's basically three levels to the story. Nefesh, which is nefesh, ruach, and neshama. Nefesh, which is the lower part, which is kind of like the part of the non-physical being that's in charge of the everyday living, controls the body, controls maybe some of our basic emotions, like just getting by in the world. The ruach, which is more, yes, intellectual faculty, more complex, more inspired, and then neshama, which is the divine level of the soul, whatever that means. And then later on, that is developed into a five model, which we'll see later on, which has basically this developed to 5 degrees and not 3. That's mostly a 16th century development. And there's different schools of Kabbalah and then they just keep developing. And then the idea of reincarnation, the idea of what happens after we die, the idea of heaven and hell, the idea of the world to come. What is the role of the soul in this world? Why are we even born, etc. All these things, you really start to see all this in Kabbalah. It's more or less, the roots of it will be, maybe the earliest year 600, 700, more literally 1000, and from the 12th, 13th century onwards, you see a lot more about it. So you can also wonder about the influences, right? Where these Jews lived amongst Christians, they lived amongst Muslims. They're not ancients in the sense that the biblical figures are. They're only 800 years apart from us. It's still very, 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 very different existence. It's not modern times, right? But it's also not too far gone in the past. It's somewhere in between. I don't know how many reincarnations have been through that since then. Really, does anyone know how, between reincarnations, how long do we wait before we're born again? Like, is it immediate? Or do you have to wait somewhere for like, I don't know, 100 years?
Buddhism says 45 days.
45 days? Well, they have all the answers. The Buddhists have all the answers. Who are we to argue with the Buddhists, right? What's that?
Gotta be a vacancy.
I don't know. Yeah,
As long as the case.
right. So, right. Can you also? And by the way, is it only like? Is it linear? Can I be reincarnated into the past? Good question, right? Aha. Okay. So we can have a vote. Yes.
My question is, if your soul could live beyond your body, can your soul precede your body? Can your soul exist before you're born?
Oh, so according to this, absolutely. And so you see that once we have kind of like, don't listen, cover your ears, because you're my Monidean, you're Aristotelian, but the rest of us, right? Once you live in a Neoplatonist world, that is that there isn't a separate existence to the soul beyond the body or unrelated to the body. The sky's the limit, baby. Because the soul, you can leave your soul while you're still alive and go to visit the upper realms and come back. You can, you exist, the soul exists before you're born, the soul can jump from one body to another body, the soul can live forever, the soul can, there's lots of options. All right, so we're in soul heaven here, all right, if we believe that. Okay, of course, this is only the eye of the beholder. I'm not saying what, I'm just sharing text and, right, I don't know. But we can try to figure it out together. So I want to actually start reading text from the Zohar because I think that's going to be fun. We can always have like introductions can go on forever. And there's always, so you can read all those texts that I've given, and I'll give you things. But let's just see like what we could actually take from reading the Zohar. I'll be passing these from each direction. Yeah. So what you're getting is an English translation. You're getting at the, well, if anybody reads the Hebrew, know that the Hebrew is not even, because the actual Zohar is in Aramaic. And then there's some stuff at the other side that we're going to need as well to understand what's going on. All right, so as you're passing the pages, I'll say that when we are reading from the Zohar, we are again reading a text that's, if you want to keep it simple, is think 13th century Spain, but really it could be 11th century, 12th century, some parts even 14th century. We're reading a text that is the main text that inspired Kabbalistic thinking. Almost everything before the Zohar, we do have some Kabbalistic books like Sefer Yetzirah, the Book of Creation, Sefer Rabbi Or, but nothing amounts and nothing gets close to the great renaissance of Kabbalistic expression that we see in the Zohar. It's like an eruption that happened in Spain. There's many theories of why that happened. One of them is an interesting one, is that there were actually a lot of Jews who immigrated from Germany to Spain. It's before this, because things weren't good in Germany. So you had a meeting of mystics from Germany and from Spain. And when they met, it became very creative. There are other theories as well. There were a bunch of Jewish scholars that were under the auspice of the king. The Spanish monarchs, in some degree until today, by the way, had a love-hate relationship with the Jews. They needed the Jews because they funded their wars. They let the Jews live in be very close to the king, but they also hated the Jews for the same reasons. And nonetheless, Judaism flourished in Spain for many centuries until we were expelled from Spain. Some of that has to do, so that's an environment that we're living in. It's an environment that is Christian, but also has Moorish Muslim influence. It's a very rich environment that many ideas are passed from one culture to another, and the Jews are flourishing, and the Zohar is one of the products of that cultural mini renaissance. And we're also reading a book that we don't know who wrote it, because it's the whole genre of the Zohar is pseudo-epigraphy. Pseudo-epigraphy, meaning that you're writing under a false name. The Zohar, the people who wrote the Zohar pretend to be Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and his students. Those are characters that did live in the land of Israel about 2,000 years ago. But if you look closely at the students, they're not from the same generation, historically. In other words, it's an invented group. That the people in Spain, and wherever they were, who wrote the Zohar, either because they were, what are the options? Because they were modest, because they thought that they were channeling these people, maybe. It's not me, I can't try such, it has to be someone else. Because maybe it was politically, they didn't want to, they were afraid to say I wrote that, either because of the rabbinic establishment, or because of the Christian persecutions, or both, right? There could be more than one reason why someone, or they just thought it was cool, or that the text would have more authority this way. There could be more than one reason why they did that trick, but then, you know, people, we still don't know who they were. When they wrote under this, I'm writing, and it's written in a weird Aramaic that they kind of invented for the book. It's almost like an invented dialect just for these writings. Makes you wonder why, because they all wrote in Hebrew. Like some of them wrote Hebrew when they wrote other books, or you know, or they probably knew Spanish as well, or you know, but makes you wonder, right? So we have now these texts that we're going to be reading are from that literature. So, shall we attempt to read a little bit from this? So, Rabbi Elazar asked Rabbi Shimon a question. Now, Rabbi Elazar is both the son and the imagined son, because again, it's not right. Rabbi in the fairy tale that is the Zohar tells amongst its about itself, and you know, there is this frame story in the Zohar literature that there's Rabbi Shimon and his students, and one of them is Elazar, is actually his son. If you know the legend about Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai going to the cave for 12 years and only drinking water and eating carobs for 12 years, he went there with his son Elazar, according to one of the versions of the tale. And so it's basically interesting. A son who's also a student asking the father, who's also the teacher, this question. Rabbi Elazar asked Rabbi Shimon a question. He said, since it is known before the Holy One, blessed be God, I change all the blessed be he to blessed be God to be a little more gender neutral here, okay? That human beings will die. Why does God send souls down into this world at all? Frequently asked question, right? And why does God need this? Some question. Good question, right? What do you think about this question?
It's a good question.
Has everyone here ever asked this question themselves?
All the time.
All the time. It's a fundamental question. It's an existential question. And so you could ask it in many different words. Why am I even here? Why are we here? Right. So why are we here? Well, there's also some assumptions to the way that the question is phrased. What are the assumptions?
Not for rules.
That there's a God. What is the other? What are the assumptions here?
That our soul is separate from our body.
That there are souls that are separate from the right. So you listen to the introduction. That's great, right? That that the souls are separate from the body, and what else? There's more assumptions, and it's a very rich question. What else does it assume?
It assumes God has needs.
That God has needs.
That these souls reside in another place.
Right. That the souls are sent. That the souls are all yes.
That it's intentional that he sends us down.
Right. So that there's actually, it's not random, or right. See, there's a lot of assumptions here, right? Which some of us may or may not believe in all this stuff, right? But according to this text, all that you said is true. Yeah, there is a God. The souls dwell with God in some place that isn't here, but isn't in the body. What's that? Doesn't need a body, probably, or maybe there's a different kind of body there. That's a lot of discussion we can have. In what capacity exactly, in what container is my soul there when it's not here? Is it in a jar? Is it in a, what is it? Is it a cartoon? What is it? See, what is it exactly? You know, it's not a body. What is it? Am I an angel with wings and a halo? What am I? When I'm in, see, it's a good question. Right, so which this text, other texts will address those, by the way, but this particular one doesn't. It's just asked. This is an existential question, right? Which even if we put aside the assumptions, it's a very basic human. Why are we here? What's the purpose? Right, like what why? And it's kind of, even though can't promise you that by the end of this text you'll have a very concrete answer. You'll see what kind of answer the Zohar gives, but even putting that question and kind of like, one guy asked another, so, right? Why does God need this, and why are we? What do we come? What do we all come here for? Right, good question. So 800 years ago, 700 years ago, Jews in Spain were asking these questions. Please, at least we know that we're not alone. We're not the first generation, probably not the last. Well, maybe we're the last, because now AI will be asking these questions for us and also giving us the answers, probably. But and the answer, we don't need you. There's a computer smarter than you, funnier than you, right? So this may be the very end, but as long as there'll be human beings, these questions will be asked as well, right? Rabbi Shimon said to him, this question has been asked many times before. Oh, many times before the sages. And they explained it. So even Rabbi Shimon is saying, son, welcome to the club. You think you're the first person who ever wonders about why you're here, why you were sent to this earth, and why does God need this? This is not the first time. So in other words, we are joining here a text that acknowledges that there's a long lineage of sages and rabbis who have asked this question before, and quite possibly they're alluding to all these introductions that we were right. Oh, this is biblical time and Talmudic time and philosophy and Maimonides and all those people, right? Basically, Rabbi Shimon here, if we're understanding that these people were aware of all these cultural and philosophical debates, right? That Rabbi Shimon kind of the more educated, learned reader said that Rabbi Shimon now acknowledged, yes, this is a part of a long debate that many generations and many rabbis and many sages have asked exactly the same question, right? The door of a door, right? From one generation to another, we ask questions that don't have answers. Why? Because why not, right? All right, so what else? But the Holy One, blessed be God, gives souls that descend into this world in order to make God's glory known, and afterwards God takes them back. What? What is this? What's the answer?
God's an egotist.
What's that?
God is an egotist.
God is an egotist. So it's God's need, right? What's the is that how you read it?
It's on loan.
What's that?
It's on loan.
It's on loan. All right, so it's on loan. God has a need, right? God, there's a need, to what? To do what?
They're not wasted.
They're not wasted?
The souls aren't wasted if he's taking them back.
Right, so first of all, we can all be relaxed. We're only here in Earth School for a little bit, right? We come from somewhere to fulfill whose need? God's need. And what is God's need? To show God's glory. How is me being here shows God? If anything, I don't know that me being here doing this little weird dance called life is showing God's glory. Maybe it is. Right? The purpose, according to this text, this is not, you can believe it, you can disbelieve it. According to this text, the purpose of the soul being here is because God wants to show God's glory. And then what happened to make God's glory known? To whom? To whom? Who's the audience of this? To show to God's friends? to God? No, well, God had, when God in Genesis, when God said, "Let us create the human in our image." Who was it? Who he or she or they were talking to?
Yeah.
Right? God has friends apparently. Right? So, no, this is not Kabbalah. This is from the first chapter of the Bible. God is talking to somebody. This is That's, yeah.
Heaven is populated in some way with angels or.
Oh, so God's sitting with all his, God's posse, right? God's angels and demigods, and maybe it's like the Jewish God and the Greek God and the African God, and they're all sitting there. Whatever, right? So there's God to show God's glory, okay? And then what happens? And it's temporary. We come here for a round. Right? And the process has to do with God's glory.
Could it be that God's glory is that humans come here and they're able to evolve? And so it's like, look at these souls I've created and how they can come back greater than they were when they left.
Well, definitely some are more evolved than others, right? I mean, you're saying we're able to evolve. Some days I feel more evolved than others. Yes, possibly. So is this involvement or the process that we go here?
Just saying, maybe that's part of God's glory, that humans are capable of expanding.
So something in our presence here, I'm going to get to you. No, we're not. Aristotelians are not welcome to talk in this class. But I'm going to get to you in a second. Something about the processes that we experience in this round here contributes to God's glory in a way. There's something there you're saying. Yeah.
Well, you both sort of implied, you said earth school, right? And you said a process of becoming. So you both seem to have in the back of your mind some sort of, we're here to learn something or to grow in some way.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're such new age freaks, right? In other words, being aware of our own prejudices is very important, right? And I wanted to take the chance to say that the approach that I have about this whole thing is that I think it's really great to have both a critical eye and a faithful eye. Wow. In other words, when we study here, we can and should use our intellect to be aware of our own prejudices. And we're also here, this is a holy, this is not a university, this is a synagogue. In other words, it's okay to have faith and believe, and see what I mean? So a way to think about, ever heard of the whirling dervishes? Whirling dervishes, that they that's their dance, right? They go, right, for a long time, they could, right? And then actually, which direction they go? I think.
Towards the heart.
Which is this one? This way.
Right.
This way. I did once a workshop. It's like this. So one leg is always, so in their whirling, one leg is always situated, the other one is always dancing, right? Always moving. So I think in our journeys of the souls and other journeys, it's okay to have one stable leg that is critical and is scientific, as an academic, and the other one let it explore, let it roam, right? Do you want to say something more about that?
I was just gonna say, well, there's me revealing I don't sit perfectly in Maimonides because I really dig that idea. We're here to grow. And
Yeah. Right. So this text for sure is not Maimonides. Okay, this text is Kabbalah, and this text is saying, well, let's see what it says.
So Maimonides was in Spain.
Also.
And yeah, so I mean,
yeah, but
what year, 1500s?
No, he was before those guys. He was the 11th, 12th century.
Okay.
These guys are reacting to Maimonides.
Okay.
And to philosophy, among other things that they're doing. And so they already know that there's people who are, right? And they're saying, no, there is a soul. And we never had to explain it because there were no philosophers to argue with. But now that there's philosophers who argue that there is no existence of the soul separate, we are forced to kind of like formalize our own ideas and express them. That's one way to understand this text. So we may be here when Rabbi Shimon is saying this has been discussed before. He's not making just a general statement, oh, this has been discussed before, like we were saying, oh, for every generation. He's actually saying there's a long, sophisticated debate that we're a part of, and that we're kind of like, depending how you want to read the text. And again, I don't know that this is so, but if you understand the culture, you understand that this is not these texts are less naive than they may seem at first glance, if they seem naive at all. So, if so, asks the student, son, why do they descend? Why? So in other words, just like us, we're not exactly convinced. You know, in other words, we understand that there's already a lot that Rabbi Shimon has revealed, but it's still fair to ask. So why? Okay, so the soul goes down, the soul goes back. Who needs this whole round? Can we just stay at home? It's a cold day. There's snowing. Why do we have to get in the car? No, just stay home. The soul can just stay where it is. Like we can sing to God's glory in heaven, right? Like choirs of angels. Why do we need to actually come here and go through this mud and slush, right? And what else? Dirt or whatever. This existence of becoming and suffering. And who needs this? Yeah.
You know, I wonder, the word that strikes me is the word God's glory being known. And what I wonder is if a person knows God's glory, does that lead to some kind of perfect enlightenment, perfect love, perfect existence and achievement? And that's the whole purpose of what God's glory is about, is to change people so that there can be a further evolution and perfection in human existence.
Possibly. I mean, let's try. Everyone know God's glory. Are we? I mean, what you're saying is profound. I think that possibly yes. You know, then
Really knowing God's glory and being in the presence of that, seeing it, hearing it, deeply experiencing it, would change everything.
Yeah, and you know, also by the way, listening to you and listening to the text, it also has to do with the fact that there's an assumption that in this world or somewhere, maybe right here where we are, not God's glory isn't always known. Right? In other words, assuming that there's a problem, but there's a challenge, that God's glory, like all those things, these nice words that you're saying, enlightenment, and what are the other things that you said? Perfection, and you know, like love, peace, harmony, all those things that they're lacking, and that some folks, maybe us, don't know it, and therefore don't have all those things that you're. In other words, that the assumption is something is broken. If it ain't broke, why fix it, right? So there is an assumption that something is missing or lacking, right? And there's a process that has to take place in order for all those, whatever the positive outcome that we're hoping for, right?
We're also talking about human souls.
What's that?
We're also talking about human beings here, you know.
Hopefully.
Yeah, well, I know, but I mean, could there be souls in other?
You know, that's a very great. So, do animals have souls? Who's a vegetarian? Right. So, do animals have souls? Do aliens have souls if they exist? Do you know, animism, ancient, you know, like religions, do trees have souls? Does the ocean have souls? Are there angels and sentient beings, and or are there demons? See, yes. So in other words, I don't know. I mean, you tell me. I know humans. Do all humans have souls? Are all human souls the same? Is you know, throughout the Middle Ages and even till today, even right here in Rochester, there's people who think that there are souls in their souls, right? Or those who can be saved and those who can't, and you know, or that men's souls are different than female souls, or that there's lots of ideas about the souls. Sinful souls, condemned souls. I don't know. There's people who tell you a lot of stuff about souls. Right? Does a cow have a soul? Does a fish have a soul? I'm just thinking of all the animals I've eaten this week, right? Like, is it a yeah, you know, there's yeah, yeah, maybe there's different souls.
Just wondering,
Yeah. I mean, just a second. Mostly we understand that this text is talking about the human experience. Yes, we're talking about the human experience. All right. Is it relevant to maybe other sentient beings? Possibly. But I think we can, if you can focus on the human experience as first step, that'd be great. Right? We only have 6 sessions and 1.5 of them is already over, so. We can have 1 semester just about demons or angels or. I don't know what, yes.
Okay, so if we're talking about souls, plural,
Mhm.
do we get to choose which one we have, or are they just sort of randomly assigned? And
Great question. This text doesn't address it. Who chooses? And what chooses, who's we who choose the soul? Excuse me, is it, who is that we that chooses the soul? Or is it the body? Does the body choose the soul? Does the soul choose the body? How are we assigned by, and who assigns?
God.
And who is the we? Is it me who has a soul, or am I the soul who has a body? Huh? What's that me that has a soul? If it comes from God, is it, whose soul is it anyways? That could be like the subtitle for this entire class, this series. Whose soul is it anyways? If it comes from God and I'm only like the host, it's like a file that somebody put in here, like here, I'll put a thumbnail. I'll send you an email with it. All right? And it's only in this computer for like, I don't know, 85 years or so. And then it goes somewhere else. Who is the I that sees this? Like once you start really thinking about this, it becomes just a little mind-blowing. Who is me that has a soul? Is it the soul that is me that went into, was born in 1977 in Jerusalem? That's where I was born. And somebody else was born in 1931 in, I don't know, Prague, or see what I mean? And who's that I compared to the soul, or to the body, or to my brain? Kind of mind-blowing. Woo! Right? So these texts, what they do, very, very quickly, they bring us into a kind of a different state of consciousness, where we start to really contemplate and experience things. And that's the magic of the Zohar. It becomes trippy and you don't have to smoke anything. I'm very serious. It's kind of crazy. People who get what the Zohar is, these people have an art to start to it's like, what is this text? We've been reading 5 lines in an English translation. And all of a sudden it's become very reflective and it's mind-blowing and we don't know. Who am I? Who is this one talking to you right now? Is it an ancient soul that has existed for thousands and billions of generations, randomly put in a body that you identify as Rabbi Or Zohar? Or is it something that is invented, an illusion, like Freud would, right? Or is it, and that thing that talks to you now will live after I'm dead? Has it existed before? And in what sense, and who is it? You see, like the question that you're asking is who? So many assumptions in the question, yeah.
well, if you believe that matter is neither created nor destroyed,
That what?
if matter is neither created nor destroyed,
Mhm.
therefore matter has always been here,
Yeah,
that we're constantly being recycled. This matter is coming from,
but that's the matter.
well, we're matter, we're made up of
Mhm.
matter.
And then what is the relation between that thing, that which we call the soul, and the physical existence? That's exactly the question. Right? Matter, we think we know the laws of matter. That scientists keep telling us that they keep discovering different things. Dark matter, I don't know, things that we think we know. We know a little bit about matter. What's the matter, right? What's the matter with you? Right? But then does the soul answer to the same laws? I don't know. All right, let's read further. Okay, so yeah. Rather, the secret is this, says Rabbi Shimon the teacher. Now Rabbi Shimon wants to teach us something. Until now, they haven't taught us anything. Right? There's a secret to learn. And then what they will often do is that they will quote a verse from scripture. This time from Proverbs, chapter 5. I don't think it's God. I think it's a mistake in the translation. God opened and said. I think it's actually he opened and said, because when I change all the he's in the text to be politically correct, this is not God. Correct this. He opened and said. He opened and said. See, never believe.
He being Shimon, Rabbi.
Yeah, Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon opened and said, and he brings a quotation from Proverbs. Drink water from your own cistern, and flowing water, or liquids, if you want to be very exact with the Hebrew translation, from your own well. If you turn the page, you'll be able to see and for those of you who can read Hebrew, you can see the Hebrew translation. The big font at the middle of the page is a verse in Proverbs. Shte mayim borecha v'nozlim mitoch be'erecha. In Hebrew it rhymes. Bor means cistern, and be'er means well. And many times in the Bible, they will have these parallelisms. No. The two halves of the verse would say something very similar, but not exactly the same. The nuance is the poetry. Right? So the proverb says, drink water from your own cistern, not sister, cistern, and liquids, or flowing water, as it's translated here so for some reason, from your own well. What's better to drink, from a well or from a cistern? What do you all have? Wells or cisterns in your house? How do you drink water? We have wells or cisterns?
We don't have either here.
What do you have?
Wells.
Wells. You have wells. Or, right? Where does you have faucets, right? And where do the waters come from? It comes from somewhere. In these parts of the world, well, where the Bible was written for sure, and that's biblical. Either you have a well, right, or you have a cistern, which is why would there be water in the cistern?
It has to rain.
It's rainwater usually collect, right? So sometimes you'd go to ancient cities in Israel and you see that the entire mountain underneath was dug in order to collect every drop of water. Right? And then if there's a siege, like when will the Romans win? Once the water is finished in the summer. Really, that's the larger the cistern, the more years or months you can stay alive, right? So either you have a well. If you have a well, you're in luck, right? It's right. So all right. So this is what Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai has to answer us. A moment ago we were talking about the soul and these aliens and enlightenment, and all of a sudden we're like in the sewage system here. We're like the water company. Like what's up with the cisterns and the wells? Well, as they say, right? What is, yeah.
Cistern is pure water,
Mm-hmm.
and flowing water is not always pure.
Mm-hmm.
So they say get it from your well where you're safe.
Mm-hmm. What's better, water wells or cistern wells? Or what's the difference between a cistern and a well? Good question, right?
One comes from heaven and one's from the earth.
What comes from heaven?
Wow.
Oh, there's directionality here, right? So one is rainwater coming from the heaven,
Right.
and one is coming from, so there's a motion that we're starting to see. So there's a certain metaphor that Rabbi Shimon, perhaps you should dance it. Right? So there is a directionality here. There's a directionality. There's water that's coming from the heaven, the rainwater, and the well. Also, where did the well get its water from? But for the
rain.
but so maybe it's more cyclical. But there's definitely a directionality here. Yeah. What else? Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, he's taking this passage out of context.
Mm-hmm.
The context is talking about sexual fidelity.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Did you check?
I looked.
Okay. Good. See, wonderful. So can you give us the context? It's very interesting. It's
Well,
very relevant.
he's saying, have sex with your own wife.
Mhm.
Okay, don't go looking to lose women.
Well, that'll be very interesting when we continue, if we ever get past the quotation, to see what Rabbi Shimon has to say about that quotation. You're doing something, remind me your name?
Keith.
Keith is doing something very important to kind of like when we're learning from the Zohar, when we're learning the Zohar, and we are going, if we want to be serious scholars of the Zohar, you see, when they're quoting a verse and they're writing it, they're assuming that the people who read it know scripture, know Bible. So often it's worth it to check the context. And actually, in some Zoharic texts, there are actually many quotations of many biblical texts and maybe from the Talmud and the Mishnah. And if you want to really dig in, one way to go about it, other than fasting for 12 years in a cave and doing a lot of yoga, like in addition, like in your you can you checking, you'll get a lot more depth. Like in that instance, how is the cistern and the well from your own well? And from your own, in other words, if you're going to have sexual relations, what's the recommendation from Proverbs?
To keep your promises, to
To
have them be committed
Mhm.
relationship.
How might that be related to the question of the soul? Any ideas? Because it is relevant. You'll see that this is not that you'll see that as we go along, that Rabbi Shimon was very aware of this. So we're understanding now that again, Rabbi Shimon is giving us a simple answer that's not so simple. He's talking about wells and cisterns, water, nourishment, right? But we're talking about the soul. What's it, right? So what's the metaphor here, right? And you're saying that there is a love or erotic or issue, right? There's also an erotic level to this whole thing, and every page in the Zohar has an erotic level to it. You just have to like dig a little bit and you'll find it, because essentially the big love story that they're talking about is what, between who and who exactly?
People in God.
Yes. Whose soul is this anyways? Right, the relationship, the key relationship that we're talking about here is between a person and the divine. Right, so the love, which is often equated to the earthly love between, let's say, a husband and wife in biblical terms. Right? So there'll always be that. You just have to expose it. Like if you dig a little bit, you'll find the Song of Songs. You'll find the level of eroticism, even if they don't say it explicitly, which they will 5 lines down the lines. Right? It's always there. So thank you for me. And that's a really good exercise. If you try to learn Zohar on your own, and you see, sometimes it'll be more fruitful than others, because sometimes they themselves are taking it out of context so much that a verse can already travel and get its own existence almost. But in this case, thank you. Checking the biblical context of the quotation adds a level. So in this case, if the soul, what does it mean for the soul to be loyal to God, or for the person to be loyal to God? And what would be the case of the soul being disloyal? Yeah.
Well, I like the way that the two things go together, because if one of the assumptions is that we're made in God's image and we're supposed to keep a promise to God as God would, then that means our obligation to drink from our own wells, to draw from ourselves, to draw from our spirit, and also to create. And so it's also to be committed to knowing God. To bring glory is also to bring glory to creation by creating ourselves and participating in that erotic way, creating a deep intimacy with the people close to us and ourselves.
And what would be the not doing it? Like the negative?
Anything else?
Right, so there's an assumption. I like all of you are saying beautiful things. I hope we're all learning from one another, because we're sharing, intuitions or truth or things that we're echoing each other in their experiences. One of the interesting things about the Zohar, that it can kind of give us a language to communicate about things that we don't always have the vocabulary to communicate about. Like these kind of like deep sensations of our inner world, or the inner wells and cisterns of our existence, and how they manifest in the world, in the relationships we have with others, with ourselves, with the divine, right? And apparently there is some kind of a directionality and some kind of a thing that is the positive way to go about it, and there's one that is less so. And Rabbi Shimon is trying to show us something. In order to understand what Rabbi Shimon is saying, teaching to Rabbi Elazar, we're all the Rabbi Elazars, right? But we're also the Rabbi Shimons. We're sharing we're sharing our deep experience. We're learning, we're listening, we're sharing, we're creating a vocabulary as a group. of how to talk about these things using these ancient symbols and words and metaphors. All right, so Rabbi Shimon opened and said, drink water from your own cistern and flowing waters from your own well. They have already explained, in other words, in other places in the Zohar, other rabbis, or in previous texts, they have already explained that a cistern, which in Hebrew is bor, and that Hebrew is important. Those of you who can read Hebrew, 3 letters, bor, bet, vav, resh. If you can't, just look at the depiction of the word bor. So they explain that a cistern, a bor, is a place that does not flow on its own. That a bor is a place that does not flow on its own, as opposed to what? To the well. Right? So everything that you said is true, but also he's giving us another nuance. Right? That the difference is that the bor is kind of like the water that can be, there's stagnation there. There's not, if it rains, if it rains, it can be filled, but the difference between the two is that in the well, there's all the time feeding of that's whereas cistern is just like a jar, right? There's no the water doesn't flow through it all the time. And when do these waters begin to flow? So in other words, when does the cistern become a well? And how do you say well in Hebrew? Be'er. Be'er. We're going to talk about that soon. We're going to talk, in order to really understand this, well, not that we can really understand this, right? But in order to really get to some of the deeper levels of this text and the metaphor, you have to know the Hebrew. You have to look at the shape of the letters. We'll get to that. It's a secret that we're learning. The secret is being taught in many ways, in many channels simultaneously. Metaphors, graphical symbols, sounds. It's not just cerebral. It's multi-level teaching here. Okay. They like to confuse you. Us, not just you. All of us. When the soul is when do these waters begin to flow? When the soul is completed in this world, when it ascends to that place to which it is bound, then it becomes whole from every side, from below and from above, and from every direction. And when the soul rises, the yearning of the female towards the male is aroused. You're right about the context, Keith. The yearning of the female towards the male is aroused, and then waters flow from below to above. And a sister, bor, becomes a well, be'er, flowing waters. Then union, connection, desire, and will are found. For through the soul of the righteous, that place is repaired, and love and desire above are awakened. And that's a mistake. It's not. And they join together as one. All right, I'm going to read this last paragraph again. It's very, it's very exciting. And the language is very festive. Then union, connection, desire, and will are found. And through the soul of the righteous, that place is repaired. And love and desire above are awakened, and they join together as one. End of paragraph. End of story.
Said paradise.
No paradise. Paragraph. A paragraph, that's a paradise. A heavenly paragraph indeed. Okay, what is this? What are they telling us? What is this?
I just have a, what is that place that, of which he speaks?
I don't know. What is that place? What place is repaired?
And when they say that the soul rises, they don't mean when the soul dies. I mean, when the body dies, because there can't be desire then.
What is it? So, is it? Is it not? Is it? Is it maybe? I don't know.
When it descends to the place to which it is bound, then maybe it's that place that is repaired.
So the place to which it is bound, possibly that place.
Cause it also talks about when the soul is completed in this world.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's,
So then,
So
that's
when
before,
mhm.
yeah.
So is the soul, what are the two options? I don't know, I can see maybe more, two options to when a soul is completed in this world, yeah?
Well, he spoke about its pursuit to perfection. Is that
Mhm.
the completed when it reaches that perfection?
Right, so according to some readings or understandings or traditions, this would mean the journey of the soul throughout this life. So in other words, the soul comes here, it goes through this process of a cistern becoming a well, and I don't know, and different completed from, and then as it departs, that could be one option. And just a second, another option could be that maybe there's a shortcut. Right? Maybe someone like Madonna saying, "Oh, heaven is a place on earth," right? In other words, maybe it's not just maybe you can reach heaven, stair to heaven. Maybe some people, maybe I don't know. Maybe it's possible to be completed or to at least get close to it while you're still alive in some ways.
That's I've been reading it, and it's a little bit of Buddhism and Taoism, and that's sort of a concept,
Which is
awareness. And
Mhm.
and going to various levels
so. In a second, I know that you want to say something too, but so one of the ways that in the Zohar they say how the world to come in the world to come, the world Haolam Haba. That's in Hebrew. The Haolam, Olam is world, Haba, the world to come. And the Kabbalists say Haolam Shekvar Ba, the world that has already come. In other words, the world to come is not necessarily the afterlife. It's another level of existence that maybe is tappable. Maybe all we have to do is agree to understand that we're here already. In other words, like the Buddhists would say, the only thing differentiating between the two states of consciousness is our own delusional mind or our own suffering. Just step out of it and realize that you already are saved. Right? Am I in the world to come, or am I in the world that has not come? Right? And if I am the soul and not me, am I? In other words, where am I? Which? Okay, so yes, Wallace.
Yeah, I take it as kind of like a rejuvenation that like we're bound to this place, kind of ethereal place above us, and then we come down here and get to witness this world, but the longer we're here, the less of the connection we have to that other place. So then eventually we have to go back to kind of get that rejuvenation, to get that like, not that we can't experience like the union, connection, desire here, but to experience it from every direction, we have to go back. And then when we come back down here, we're all refreshed and new, and we can experience it again in a different way.
All right. So in this, according to your reading, a very interesting reading of this, which world is the cistern? Which one? And which one is the well?
I would probably say this world is the cistern.
Because it's disconnected, like as if it's like the source.
Yeah.
In other words, the source of the water comes from the divine, right? And then the challenge is according to you how so basically, how does a cistern become a well? By the way, if I'm reading this if we're like in a class of gods and not of humans, could it be read the other way around?
Yeah, it's perspective that
right, because, yeah,
Place
right.
rejuvenates you more.
One important paragraph here I think is really interesting is when the soul rises. I'm gonna skip the second one for now. When the waters flow from below to above, which a well would go from below to above, but when it rains, it usually goes top to bottom. So this is a reversal. Then we talk about the cistern becomes a well, so that's another thing that's maybe backwards. And then if we look at sexist way, a woman attracted to a male, the least likely outcome, maybe, I don't know. A woman yearning for the male in this old timing. But it has that reversal. If we look at like the way that cosmic theory works, where we think the universe is ever expanding, but at some point we'll come back together and expand again. Maybe that half-life of our souls is one universe worth. Like maybe it, since if matter can't be destroyed or created, the next time there's another universe, maybe that's the next time our soul comes. It might not be as linear as we want it to be.
Right, so it could also be cyclical, right? Potentially, there's like breath, you know, like maybe is a universe created and destroyed every time I breathe? Well, I created, right? I don't know, a billion different planets and some, you know, right? So theoretically speaking, this kind of expansion and contraction can be it can be something cyclical, and maybe again, so it could be about life and death. But if we're in a world of reincarnation, what's the big difference between like every day and someone's life compares to eternity? Right? Does it really matter? You see what? And maybe it's really not about. Maybe sometimes it can be like over a lifetime. Maybe someone is so dense that they will not learn in 10 lifetimes. Right? And maybe someone else in 5 minutes will figure it out, but then they'll wake up the next morning and they have something else to figure out. I don't know. Right? So again, these texts are not, it's not science. It's supposed to awaken us to some kind of a consciousness. It's a very long Zen riddle, because it's a Jewish Zen riddle. Right? It's like the Japanese will have a poem, like a sentence. We have like a whole text. But it's the same idea. It's a text that's supposed to bring you outside of just mere language and logic. Yeah, anyone you wanted to say something?
Well, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
That the cistern and the well are here, I mean, both. And if you have free will, you can choose.
You can choose. Can you choose? I want to be a well. No, I want to be. Do we always choose? Sometimes we feel like sometimes, you know, sometimes who said, you know, sometimes we feel that we want to be able, you know, but maybe we don't. Do we choose? Do we choose to be born here? In this cistern? Where's my well? I've been here for so long, right? I need to, it's almost also time to finish, but there's something important that I need to tell you. Do you want to say something, Fred? Who else? No? Yeah.
The people who wrote this, maybe I missed something in the introduction. It sounds like they're coming to some sort of conclusion here, possibly. Is this divine? Did they meditate on this? Was there some process that they came to this?
Well, what do you think? What do you think?
I don't know.
So we don't know who they were.
Oh.
But is this divine? For sure these texts, see, we have a text. And I think I said it last week or somewhere else, I thought that recently that we don't have YouTube recordings from that time. In other words, we don't know the synagogue where they prayed. We don't know what they did at midnight.
Well,
we don't see, in other words, but we do, of course, these people were the people who, and that's the one way to assess the text is to try to see what kind of, yes, these people were probably people who had very full and heavy spiritual rituals that then inspired them to write these texts. Another way to assess this text is that ever since the Zohar appeared in the 13th century, actually not right away, a little bit, but then more towards the 15th and 16th century and beyond, people have been feeling that this text is divine, that it's transformative, that it helps them in these exactly what maybe we're feeling a little bit in this room. It's just a text, but it takes me on a journey, which is like a meditation. So in other words, the text has that, you know, in the end we have what did the poet mean when they wrote the poem, right? So the poet's greatness would be because we read that poem and we say, a road not taken, right? It inspires generations of people. So similarly, these texts in the Jewish tradition are considered to be holy texts to many Jews. People have felt that they are inspirational and are helping them to awaken. The name of the book is Zohar, it means radiance, God's light. Right? If maybe in some moment in this class, before we got too tired, right? That's why I'm standing. It's hard, like try next time just to stand throughout the class. It's much easier. You can move around and demonstrate. So one thing that I do want to steal 5 minutes from your time, it's important for the understanding of this text. Turn to the other side and look at the word bor, cistern, and be'er, well, in Hebrew. They're written one on top of the other. They're very similar to one another. Yeah.
Yeah, the vav kind of turns at an angle and then is connected to above and below when it becomes.
Right? So the first, those of you who can't read Hebrew, the first and the last letters are the same, bet and resh. And then the middle letter, the vav, is basically a very narrow letter, and then the aleph in the middle there is like the vav that Oris has. So if you look at me for a second, right, it's like I'm doing a dance here. I'm demonstrating. Right, so I can be vav, bo, cistern, or I can be aleph. Right, so a little bit. So the transformation between cisterns, state of being, to which, by the way, that could be cool too. Right, that's great. It's great to be a cistern, not judgmental. Right, from cistern, bo to be'er. Right, it's like the motion between the vav to the aleph letters. Right, the aleph, like you said, reaches upwards, reaches downwards, because everything is flowing, everything is moving, right? So, and to connect the thing that you were saying, it's all in the meditation between these two letters. And abracadabra, if you go to and then if you take all those letters together, the last word, boe, the creator, is a combination of the two. Right, so basically, that's the meditation. That's kind of the mantra, the mind-blowing mantra. Right, which so kind of like so you're right. So this motion between, oh, I'm here. I think you can take it. You can really. This is just my interpretation of this moment. I'm doing like a little reenactment here. Right, I'm a cistern. My well isn't flowing. I have lost my connection. I am stuck. I'm in this world. Where is God? Right? I'm lonely. Maybe I'll go fornicating. Right? I don't know. I'll succumb to gambling. I don't know. I'll start a war. I'll do something because I've lost my my boré, my creator. I don't know what I'll do. Oh, but the vav can become aleph. The cistern is in the eye of the beholder. There is that. So is it talking about the afterlife when we die? Is it talking about every night when we go to sleep? Is it talking about every single moment? How do I remember that I'm all those wonderful things that you have said? That I'm connected and I'm divine, that I'm a soul that's here for a visit, having fun? Right? Or am I right? But also I don't want to also insult a cistern. And the cistern is also great. That separation also allows growth. I will tell God's glory in the cistern. Right? This is a Zen riddle. It's not a.
This is yin and yang.
This is how is this yin and yang?
Well, I'm thinking, focus in on your center
Mhm.
and then expand.
Yeah. Right. And can I also expand center bound? Maybe. Right. These are mind blowing. These to me, Zen riddles, very rich. And you see that the answer is not to tell us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. it's a text that's an anti-text. It's a text that is deconstructing language. It goes to the letters and the shape of the letters, right? And in order to really understand, you need to know Hebrew and the letters and the shapes. Bor, Be'er, Vav, Aleph, right? It's a text that wants to awaken us beyond text, beyond thought, beyond logic, to like you go out of here, you say, ooh, what was in the water jar? Right? Why are they spiking the water in here? Because, oh, what is this well? I thought it was a cistern. You see what I mean? And then you go home and you can read this again and again, and you'll find more things in this text that I did not say. Right? Mm-hmm.
Aren't there translations that really go into the like shapes of the letters and the?
Well, you have one now. Right, so to a degree, yes, but even, for example, that it's the bore, it's not in the text. Some of those things you have to kind of figure it out, and I just added it. It's not in the, so I just added it because it's to a degree, yes. So if you read the best edition of the Zohar in English is the Pritzker edition. It's like a lot of yellow text, a lot of yellow books, volumes. They will give you a lot of it, but not all of it. Right, yeah, so some is lost in translation, but not all, and then it helps to have a teacher who knows, and to have each other who know, and some of it is just, I could read the same Zohar paragraph, when I read it when I was 20, and now I'm almost 50, and I keep discovering new levels. Yeah, it's kind of endless. Yeah, and we need to read, by the way, we need to go, it's like 8:40 already, but yeah.
I would say it's a process rather than a destination. You don't read it, you get done, you go home and think, now because we need the next one. It's you have to go back to the beginning and try to figure out where you were and where you're going to, and look at it as a process that never gets completed.
Yeah, so I love what you're saying. It's a good way. It's a good note in which to end, right? That these texts, right, not to never end. To understand that it never ends. It never ends, right? The Aleph will always come out of the Vav, right? There's always another moment of life or afterlife, right? So have a great evening, enjoy yourselves, do something nice for somebody else, like be the well that the sister wants to be in the world. See you next week. There's another text.
And their faces.
Thanks for being
I know. You think, oh, now I'm gonna tie it up in a little box, it makes sense already. Yeah, it's just expanding.
Right, carefully,
Yeah, you need your finger.
Now, why they say that?
What does that mean? Exactly. Yeah, try that on Valentine's Day. No chocolate.
We always had a special around Valentine's Day. That's where I.
And then later,